Hi everyone. Hopefully you guys can see my screen and can hear me. Got a few people that have joined, and I'm sure a few more people will be coming in. Just confirm if you can hear me and if you can see my screen. In a couple of minutes, we'll get started. So we'll just give people a little bit more time to join us. But I hope you're all doing well. So my little bubble, I got my son in the other room. So if you guys do hear a little bit of background noise, he's just doing some work with his peers at school. So all that sort of stuff happening now that we have all our kids working or doing schooling from home at the moment. Awesome. Some people confirming that they can hear me and see my screen. All right, we'll get started. So, hey guys, thank you so much for joining me today. This is part 2 of how to build a plan in Figured. My name is Scott Campbell. I'm a partner success manager here at Figured, and I will be taking you through to the end of building out a 12-month plan. So in the last session, we finished off trackers. A bit of housekeeping first. If you have any other apps or screens open, just close those down. It'll just allow me to stream clearly through to you today. If you lose me at any point, feel free to click on that blue and white icon, and that should bring me back up. If you have questions as I go along, please ask. We've got some of my colleagues in the chat there that'll answer questions as I go along. If not, hold them to the end, and I'll try to cover them off. If you guys need help, there's a few places you can go to find it. In the first instance, we say to reach out to your accountants. They've set up your farms and have given you access. If you haven't got access still, please go get it and use these resources that we have in our YouTube channel to help you build out your plans or your scenarios. Just a great way to self-pace your learning, but also coming to these live tutorials is just a great medium to come and talk and ask questions as we actually go through things live in the app. And then feel free to go to our blog. So www.figured.com/blog. There's a whole bunch of great articles written by accountants, bankers, and other farmers, so you get some great ideas on how that can help you grow your business. So today we're going to be looking at finishing our plan. That's the main goal. We're going to talk about a few key things in Figured around rolling plan and snapshots. What are they? How do they work? And then we'll actually get into building our plan using the tools that we have. So how to export and import, how to use some of the spread copy tools that we have, and then we'll take a deeper dive into reporting at the end after we've finished fleshing out our plan. So just so you know what data you have to work with, it's super important. When you log in, you'll either see annualized data or you'll see monthly data. And that's going to be a starting point when we're working today. And if you have any questions around your file and what you're looking at, have a yarn with your accountant. So these guys would have set you guys up and they'll be able to talk you through the subscription that you're on and the information that you have. So over here is just a quick look at what annual data looks like on a zero subscription. That's a ledger type. It'll all be annualized. We can export that out and import that in, basically moving it from May into the first month for the new year, and you can build on that. So I'll talk a little bit about that later. And the other view for the other zero subscription types that are out there is monthly data. And monthly data obviously is great because now all this actual data coming in from zero, we can leverage that when building plans, and we can compare against actuals as they come through zero into figured in our variance reporting to see how you're going to plan, so that you're meeting those targets you've set for yourselves. But what is rolling plan? So in figured, you plan in 12-month chunks, and each year, if you have anything that has been entered, invoices, etc., that or income that pertains to the next year, that will automatically flow through. So there's no need to go and re-enter information in the next year. It's just seamlessly working going forward perpetually. So as you're going and building it out, you can choose to build a 6-month plan, or you can go and build out a 2-year plan. So as short as or as long as you'd like it to be. We also have this concept of snapshots, which is basically our way of saving the plan. I thought it was super important to know that zero is where all your actual opening balances come from. You can select what you want to show you date 2 to get that split between actual data and plan data, but by default, Figured will show actuals to last month when you go into a particular report. So zero is your source of truth for actuals. Your bank feeds all feed into there automatically as transactions go through or within 24 hours. Then you can code things off, and that'll flow into Figured. Inside Figured, we're home for production and planning. So your forecast lives in Figured, and we can actually use that actual information to report against our forecast, or we can actually use that actual information like we'll do today to build out our forecast for the new year. So Figured combines the two and the production data, and you can surface up all that good info in our reports, and we'll take a look at that at the end. So at the beginning of the season, when we're building out our first version of our plan, we approve that. And there's an approved plan button that we click on. And then we just need to give that plan a detailed name and description, so that when we're running these reports, these snapshots, these saved lockdown versions of the data that we're looking at and building, that we know what it is and can find them. So you can take as many snapshots as you'd like. So yeah, like I said before, snapshots is a way we save and lock down data. So all the information you're looking at, our way of taking that information is by creating a snapshot in your planning grid, and then we can surface all of that up in our reports. Our snapshots aren't editable, which is great. That means when you make changes, always just take a snapshot. There's no limit to how many you can take, and we can then open up reports and find those and surface those up. You can compare snapshots with your actuals and your live forecast, or you can compare or use a snapshot, I should say, instead of looking at your actuals and live forecast. So a couple of options that'll make a lot more sense when we're actually in our reporting area. And then we'll move into building out a plan now. So there's 3 steps to building out a plan, very similar to how we built out our trackers for those of you who showed up to the last session. If you haven't, you can go back onto our YouTube channel and watch that. It's just a simple 3-step process. We'll enter our planned information. We can use last year's actuals or last year's plan. Some of you may not have monthly data. We'll talk about what you guys can do. There's still tools you can use. Or just go back a couple of years and check if there is any monthly data that you can leverage to help use some of the cool features we have or form the basis for your plan. You can enter things manually, and you can use the copying and spreading tools. Step 2 is just taking a snapshot of that data. So we're locking that data down so we can report on it later on. And then in the third step, we'll go and have a look at some of the key reports that you can run. So just jumping into the main app, here on my dashboard, the first thing I want to do is take you guys into the planning grid. And inside the planning grid, I just wanted to show you the Approve Plan button. So at the beginning of the season, after I've built out my whole plan, I can approve it. And that'll be the first snapshot, the first set of data I lock down and store away for reporting purposes. After that, it will change to a Take Snapshot button. And that will allow me to take as many snapshots as I'd like. So anytime, my rule of thumb is if you're going to make a material change to any income or any expense line item here, just take a snapshot, give it a naming convention. You can always go back and archive snapshots that you don't need and hide them away if you are seeing that you're taking too many. But I'll show you that in a bit. So if I click on Take Snapshots, that is where I'd save that plan. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back into 2020 and I'm going to set my actuals to Feb, because what I want to show you guys here is how we can actually take a snapshot of this year's plan that we're living in. So a combination of the actuals that we have, say up until Feb, or I could have done April. But I think my Feb data is probably the most up-to-date data that I have so far, and then my plan going forward. So I want to take a snapshot of this so I can utilize some tools later on in planning where we can create a distribution curve. So I'm going to take a snapshot of this data. So that's just all my actuals going out till Feb, and then my plan going forward, and adding them together will give me the totals that I have here. So I'm going to go and click on Take Snapshot now. And I'm going to give this a name. So I'm going to call it my Actual Plus Forecast 2020 Actuals till Feb. And I'm going to use this for the distribution tool in 2021. So that's what this snapshot is going to be used for. I'm capturing the data because I want to utilize it in a way that'll make planning a little bit more intuitive for me in the new season. So I'm going to set this as the annual plan. So for those of you who have monthly data or can get your hands on monthly data in say 2020 or 2019, you can go back and set that as your annual plan to utilize that for a distribution tool that we will take a look at. So take a snapshot of that. All your snapshots are stored in the left-hand side here. So if I click on snapshots, you can see I got a long list of snapshots here, and all these annual plans are the ones that I've done at the beginning of the year, or they are ones that I've actually set for the distribution curve for the current year that I'm working in. So this is where all your snapshots live. You can manage them here, you can rename them. But I just wanted to show you this holding area, and all these snapshots can be reported on in my reports window on the navigation bar on the left-hand side. So the navigation bar, again, is just where you go to the different parts of your figured app. So this is that snapshot that I just took before. It was a snapshot of my actuals plus forecast. And again, that's what is going to form this distribution curve. I'm going to jump back into the planning grid, and we're going to go forward and start having a look at some of the tools that we have available to us. So in the planning grid, I'm going to set my actuals to none because I just want to focus on my plan data. And I'm going to move forward to the 2021 year. So here we have the information we did from the last webinar. We focused on building out our production trackers, using 3 steps as well, exporting and importing if you have historical data, and then going into the reforecaster and manipulating the data there so it fits into this season, into the plans I have for the season a lot better. And after that, basically going and editing information further, and then coming in and reporting on things if need be. But right now we've got this great gross profit line here, and that's going to form a large part of what we can refer to when we're editing things. So other income sits up the top here. We can use the same tools that I'm going to show you in a sec to edit other income. But today what we're going to focus on is all your operating expenses and your other income. You can use the same tools that I use to edit my operating expenses to edit other income if you guys have anything that is showing amongst your trackers there in the planning grid. So I'm going to click on Tools, and in the Tools drop-down menu, I'm going to export out last year's actuals, so 2020. I'm going to say actuals plus forecast. I'm going to say actuals till February, just because that's where I have coded all my information off in Xero is up until Feb. Probably need to get on to doing the rest of it. And then the forecast will go forward from there. And I'm going to run it on a cash basis. So with that all exported out, you'll get a message that pops up. Click on Done. And now we'll move on to the second step, which is importing it in. So you want to click on Tools, and you want to click on Import. Opens up, just make sure you select all the right options. So I want to import it into 2021, into the forecast. And I want to import it on a cash basis. Make sure that you tick this box, super important, because we're exporting out last year's information. For those of you who have that handy, or the year before, you can import your actuals or your forecast. I should have mentioned that you don't have to necessarily import actuals. If you just want to use sort of the same base plan year on year, you can import in a historical plan if you have. Tick this box and then go and choose the file in your downloads and then click on Import. So it'll run a little window just processing all those transactions that it's importing. When it's done, click on the Done button. And just like that, we've brought in a whole heap of information here without too much effort. So that's just one really cool way, if you have monthly data, to start the planning process off for all your other income and expenses. For those of you who have just annualized data based on the subscription that you have in Xero, that's probably something that you guys can have a chat with your accountant about. And if you move on to getting monthly data, that's something you can leverage in the new year. Firstly, for those of you who do have monthly data, we'll talk about the different tools that we can use to edit some of these, like calf rearing, that I'm going to expand out here. So my examples today will be around calf rearing, and I'll expand out another section that we can take a look at. I'll expand out fertilizer. And over here, I'll probably focus on increasing the amount of spend that we have on these, because I feel like that's probably going to be needed. We have a few options available to us when we're editing this imported plan. So one option is that we can go and actually just edit an amount in a cell by clicking on the cell. The second one is we can copy things, whether it's monthly by monthly or quarterly, and we can do a spread using that copy button. And then there's obviously the spread option that we have here. And this is the one that relates to that snapshot that I took before. So you saw me move back into 2020 and take a snapshot of my actuals plus forecast. And I said we're going to save that away because we got a tool that can spread information in the 2021 year for an account based on how I spent, or proportionately how I spent things for that account in the prior year. So just have that in mind. We're going to look at that, and that's really a really cool feature for those of you who do have monthly data. And the last option is that percentage spread option. So just jumping back into our planning grid, Our first example I'm going to take a look at is the copy option. But I'm going to start off with calf rearing feed. I want to increase that, say by 100. You can basically click on that cell and enter that value in there. So that's the first example of just editing a value in a cell. Click on it, enter the number you want. The next example I was talking about was copy. Clicking on copy, that'll actually populate that value into this field here. And then you can click on monthly to change that spread if that's not what you're wanting to use. If you don't want to spread that 100 across monthly in each month, hit that menu and pop-up that comes up next. I'm going to select quarterly as my option, and then I'm going to spread that across. So that $100 that I had in that cell that I selected, I'm now spreading that quarterly. So that's your second option for editing. I've gone and edited that value again because I want to actually spread this using that curve functionality that I was talking about earlier. So I'll put 1300 in here, and now I'm going to click on spread down the bottom here, put that 1300 into that cell, and when I hit the drop down menu, I'm going to change that from quarterly to the curve option. So that curve option will only show if you have an actual snapshot saved as an annual plan from last year, and that has information in it. So with different amounts in the different months based on how you spent or received money for that particular account. If that month is blank, it doesn't have any data in it, there was no spend on it, you won't see this curve button, and you'll have to use one of the other three options. I'm going to select curve, and now I will click on spread. So that spread that across. You can see that it's moved all the other values that I had in there before, because actually last year nothing was in there. And most of my, so that's it adding up to that 1300, but most of my spend here last year was in August. So just bringing up a little pop-up here of my 2020 year snapshot of actuals. So you can see actuals that flow into this window from 0 is blue. And when you see something that is blue and figured, that means you can drill down into it. So this will take me for calf rearing feed, if I clicked on that, would take me into my 0 file so I could see all the actual transactions that I've coded off in my bank that make up these values here. But you can see that in August last year, that was the bigger portion of the spend. That's why it's allocated about 1,200 to that month. So that's really awesome. Takes some of the thought in how you spread things out, or it just makes it a bit more realistic than just doing a flat spread using that curve feature. The other option, the last option that we have is just by a percentage. So I've checked line, and you can click adjust by percentage, enter the amount into that cell, and then put your percentage in here, and then click on adjust by percentage, so that spread button there, and that'll push it across, increasing each month by 3%. So now that that spread has gone across, you can take a snapshot of that. So I went up to the top and clicked on take snapshot. You have to make sure that you enter a name. So make it specific. Select where you want to show your actuals up until, and then click on description to give it any other additional notes so that you can find it, or other people that are coming in here and working with you on your plan, whether that's your accountant, your farm consultant, or your bank, your personal banker. They can come in here and make sense of the different snapshots that you have taken. So after all of that, we've actually built out our full plan. The most important thing is to put that annual plan label on that. So tick this box and then click on take snapshot. So a little question here before we jump in and take a look at reporting is whether we can go back and undo what we had just spread. No, you can't. We want to be able to, so if you take a snapshot of what you had last, you can reference what you had in there before. You can always export things out if you ever did want to import it back in to go to a particular point. We are looking at the ability to have a rollback function at some point to go back to a snapshot at a point in time and then build up from there again. But I think that's really good feedback. If we had just a small undo button on the last step you did, sort of like a Control-Z in Microsoft Word, that sort of undoes each step if you keep clicking on Control-Z. I'll pass that feedback on, but if anyone has any other questions, keep them coming. So we're going to jump in and have a look at reporting inside the app. But just to summarize, we use 3 steps to export, import, and edit information. For those of you who don't have annualized data or don't have any data, you can simply click on a cell, punch the values that you want in based off maybe some hard copy reporting you have, and then use some of those spread options, and then you can manually edit things within a cell as well. So we've built out all our trackers, we've built out our other income, and built out all our expenses. Now for the end result is coming to your reports area on the left-hand navigation bar here. And these are all the reports that we have access to. I'd love to cover them all, but I'm just gonna focus on a key few. And as we go back over things, what you need to bear in mind is when you're finished, because it's a cloud product, it's a real opportunity for you guys to work collaboratively with everybody else that can contribute to your plan. So come in here and share your report. So we can go and open up our cash flow report, for example, and share that with, say, our accountant. So I just wanted to show you the share option first. So you built a plan with me. If you've been following along, click on share report, click on save report. And what that will do is take a copy of this that we can then annotate and pass on to people directly from within the app. So over here, you can see that I've shown my quantities in my cash flow report. You can add a note in here, and then you can share that. So all the people that are on this app, on this file, sorry, you can simply click on their name and add them in. If it's someone that isn't on here, so say if it's your banker or your accountant, you can type a person's email address in and they'll only get access or a look at that one report that you're sharing, not the whole app. You can add a note into the body of the email and then click share. So if you go off after this and finish building out your 2021 plan, I'd recommend that you come in here, click on the share report button, annotate things and send that off to somebody else to take a look at, just because a fresh pair of eyes that has expertise in other areas, whether that be tax or other financial advice or more to do with what's happening on farm, can come in here and add notes so you have just one solid plan to move on into the 2021 year with. So that's the first thing I wanted to show you guys with the share functionality. If I jump back, you can go into reports again. A little tip here, if you hold control and left click, you can open up a new tab. So I've held control, clicked on cash flow report, and now I still have my reports tab open on the left and my actual cash flow report showing now. Just additional options sits across all our reports. And what you can do here now is utilize this to customize your report even further. So I'm looking at my 2020 plan that I'm still living in currently. what I can do here is customize this further. So I might want to have a look at from May 2020, the last sort of 14 months going back. So if I go May 2020 here, and May 2020 here is my start and end date, I might compare that with the last 13 months. So you could change this to look at, say, the last quarter and compare things on a quarterly basis, or you can click this button and look at things on an annual basis. So come and experiment with this. If I go show quantities, that'll include quantities in there, and I can click run. So now you can see 14 months with all the quantities showing. The other thing I could do in this space is if I wanted to have a look at the 2021 year plan, I'm going to run that. But under additional options, just to get a bit of a sense check of the plan that I've built out now, I'm going to go and compare that with a snapshot that I've taken. So I'm going to go compare period 2020 snapshots, and you can go and hunt for a snapshot that you've taken before. So I'll go actuals here, and I'll run that. So if you have information, it'll stack it up against each other, and the comparison figures will be below, and the actual figures for your current plan will be above. So that's a good way to look at it. If you had a snapshot of last year's actuals, you can compare it to this year's plan and get a really good sense check on whether amounts were over or underestimated. But really key too, though, I should call this out, is totals. Get used to scanning your totals, comparing them with each other, seeing that there's sort of a 10K difference that pops out at you instantly, and also the totals line at the bottom. So sorry, I'm going to collapse everything just so I can get to the bottom quicker. So I've collapsed everything with a click of a button, scrolling to the bottom, having a look at your closing balances and just comparing those two, or just looking at your current year and seeing if there's any negative balances, and if there's any way that we can help ease cash outflow in that month. So yeah, so a few options there. Have a play, use additional options in your cash flow report. That would be an awesome start. The other report that you want to have a look at is your variance report, and you want to get used to running this each month as actuals are flowing in. For those of you who have zero files that get monthly data, this report will allow you to do things on a monthly basis, comparing your actuals against your snapshot or your live forecast. That plan that you can are currently living in is your live forecast, and your snapshot is a saved report at some point in time. So you've locked that away, locked that data away so that you can compare it and use it here. So I've got my actual month versus one of my snapshotted months here. I also got my actual year-to-date versus my snapshot year-to-date, and I got my actuals plus forecast full year versus last year's actuals plus forecast. So anytime you select a snapshot, it'll give you an option to go and select what snapshots you want to utilize and run. And that's why that naming convention, giving it a specific name, will help you find it. And if you're getting too many options here, go back into your snapshots area under your planning grid and archive some of the ones that you don't need. So I was saying before, locking those sets of data away is super easy to do from your planning grid. And to do that anytime you make changes, and just run a little monthly cull of any snapshots that you no longer need. And that'll just allow you to come in here and find what you need as you're reporting. Some awesome options on the right-hand side here, sorry, is that you can show quantities again in your variance report. You can show things like forecast remaining or snapshot remaining, which will give you a good sense of how much you have left to spend, or how much. It'll probably just say zero if you spent it all, but if we scroll down now, you can see the different options that I have available. That's my actual versus my snapshot there. Anything that's red is a negative variance. Anything that's green is a positive variance. So just making it really easy for you guys to analyze things. I'll collapse everything here just to sort of make it a nice one-pager. That's probably a really good call out, is if you do collapse everything on this screen, when you go to print it, it'll be a nice one-pager. So you'll print off one page. If it was expanded out, you saw me scrolling before, profusely to get to the bottom. That's how many, well, it's probably going to print out 3 or 4 pages opposed to just one. So just make a note that you can collapse everything at the top, collapse all, and if you just wanted to break out one section, so maybe that's calf rearing, click on that and click on fertilizer if that's something that you want to go and then highlight in your save reports after when you annotate it. You can copy things to clipboard if you ever do need to do that. You can copy it to clipboard and paste it into Excel. If you guys have a need to do that, you want to put sort of more information side by side and have a play around, for those of you who are wizards at Excel. The next report I wanted to show you, this will be the last one, is your production report. So your production report will look at things on a dollar per peak cow basis, dollar per stock units, dollar per hectares. This is really important when you're entering your details. If you want that this report to work on any of these bases, that you have to actually go and activate your stock units under tracker settings. These are things that your accountants have already set up for you, or you can talk to them about getting it set up so that you can utilize some of these other metrics that you have here. So again, in the production report, click on additional options. You can compare the current year that you're in with prior years. You can select what trackers you want to use. So if you have breeding and finishing trackers for livestock, you might just want to look at your finishing trackers. You can select that and look at things on a stock unit basis for your finishing trackers as opposed to your breeding. For dairy, if you go into your milk trackers, and we've set that up so it has your peak cows and your effective hectares, that'll flow through into here as well if we select these options. So I've just compared this year with the prior year, and I can scroll down here and I have all of this on a dollar per cow basis. I'm going to collapse this again just so I can see everything at a higher level. So operating surplus 300. You could actually turn on totals as well if you just wanted to see what the total for those accounts were, or for the year. So here's the totals, and here's the dollar per cow for each of these years. In 2020, I had 505 cows. In 2019, I had 500. So in your sales summary, and you can actually change this to look at on a stock unit basis, or you can consolidate all your light trackers to have a stock rec of all your different farms consolidated into one. So if we want to have a look at just all my finishing stock across all my farms, if I have 3 that I'm tracking separately, this will consolidate all of that up for you, and you can look at it at a carcass weight or live weight basis as well. But hopefully that has given you guys an idea of some of the awesome things that you can do after we've done a whole bunch of planning quite easily, especially if you have monthly data. And it's not too hard if you have to manually enter it easy. We've got the stock rec, we've got spreading tools inside the planning grid. And then you can come in here and review your reports and share that with your accountant. So I highly recommend that you guys do that after this, after you've built your plan. And we got this awesome website that I will put into the chat. So this is a resource page for farmers. It'll have videos, it'll have content, places that you can sign up for future events, tips and tricks, case studies. And obviously we're all in the green bubble here to help you guys out. And your accountants are there too to get you started on anything around Figure that you need so that you can produce some of these great reports. But that is all from me today. If you guys have any questions, I'll hang around for a bit. Just drop your questions into the chat. And I look forward to seeing you in another webinar. We're going to be running these over the next few weeks. So feel free to go build it out and come back with more questions. Really enjoyed taking you through everything today. Any other questions from anyone? I'll hang around for a few more minutes. All right, seems like there's no additional questions. I hope you guys have got some value out of it, and that I can probably catch up with you guys in another session. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your guys' day and week. Cheers.